Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Real Sheebs podcast, a podcast for the community, featuring the community. Today, we have an awesome, very exciting guest with us today. Uh, we have Ryan Fujiu with the Doge Card. Welcome, Ryan, to the show. Great to meet you.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
Awesome.
Great to be here.
I'm Jimmy, and I'm here with my host here, Slick Rick, and we've got a lot of conversation, a lot of ground to cover. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit with us today. As you know, and as our viewers know, this is very much a get to know you type of show, and obviously you are coming into the community as a Sheeb, as someone who's into Dogecoin, and you also have a product. And so we want to talk to you about that and get to know you a little bit better. So, like I said, welcome. Let's start things off. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Ryan Fujiu?
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm very excited to come and share a little bit about what we're building and answer a bunch of questions I heard the community have as well. And for me, a very simple guy. I've been in tech for my whole career. I live in Los Angeles and have two kids, two young boys, 5 and 7, kinder and second grade, and they keep me really busy, and so does Dogecard. So just really happy to be here and sharing with the group, and huge fan, obviously, of the Doge community, and met some of the nicest people that I've met in a long time here. So thrilled to be here.
Awesome. 2 boys. Wow, that is 3 full-time jobs.
Yeah, they're a handful. Anybody on the call with young kids knows how challenging that is. So yeah, they definitely keep my hands full.
Oh yeah, mine are probably going to be screaming and audible in the background any minute now. So looking forward to that. Around the same age. So I'm not against arranged marriages. You're a good looking guy, so I think we could probably pull off some good future looking offspring there.
That's too funny. No, yeah, working from home with the 2 kids poses like a very unique challenge. So, Godspeed to you, sir.
Thank you.
We talk about how much you guys look alike.
Just our puppets. So yeah, let's get to know you a little bit. What kind of stuff are you into, outside of Dogecoin? What are your personal interests? Do you have any hobbies? What do you do outside of working 24/7?
Yeah, I mean, these days, unfortunately, it's mainly just work and kids and my wife. But always try to see my family. My family's in LA here. I grew up nearby in Riverside, which is about an hour away from Los Angeles. And when I'm not, working or taking care of the kids, I do like to play golf, and I do like to go running, and I like to visit the beach, and I like to hang out with my friends, and just enjoy the relationships. Relationships are so important for just my mental health, and being able to focus on work and my kids. So I do get energized by seeing my friends, and I get energized by being outside as well. So these are things that I really try to make time for and focus on where I can.
Awesome. Yeah, there's really good golf out there. I'm in Arizona, so we have some good courses if you're ever out here. I'm not very good
Yes,
anymore.
it's on the bucket list.
I used to play in high school, so
Really?
definitely lost my swing. Yeah.
You'll get it back, and I did the same. I've lost my game as well, but just being out there and drinking a few drinks and having fun with with your friends, it's just invigorating. So hopefully you can get out and play again soon.
What's your handicap, Ryan?
I'd probably say I used to play pretty competitively, and now I'm probably shoot high 70s and low 80s. So like 8 to 10.
Yeah.
But it's a far cry from back in the high school days, which I'm sure you guys know about.
Back in my prime. Every golfer
The
has
glory
their
days,
stories.
golf. Right.
We might be a lethal scramble. Little scramble team.
Yeah, we should get I'm sure there's a bunch of folks from the Doge community that play. We should all get to, we should get out there if we ever
little
Dogecard
tournament.
get together.
Invitational.
Yeah, we could do, we could pay out in Doge whoever wins, whoever wins each hole.
Ooh. Well, let's see where that goes. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your experience getting into, into the community. What got you into Doge in the first place?
Well, as with kind of the rest of the world, I was following closely during all the periods of time where, crypto got really popular and then waned, and then Doge kind of made its big jump, and I was really following closely. And my old boss, who is the founder of Bird, the founder ex-CEO of Bird, Travis Vanderzanden, was like a really long time Doge community member and holder. And he's not active on Twitter with us, but he first turned me on to Doge several years ago and was like, "Hey, this is going to be a thing." And I bought in a little bit back then. Wish I would have, put in way more, of course. But he got into it because he's close with a bunch of folks from Elon's circle. So this guy Antonio Gracias, who was on the Tesla board, was also on an early investor in Bird, and they would always joke around in board meetings about Doge and accepting Doge for Bird rides and stuff. So it really kind of turned me on to it, and being that close to those guys who I really admire and I saw as like extremely smart and successful folks, and they were kind of talking about Doge so regularly, and it became such a part of like kind of the vernacular as we were working through, especially payments stuff at Bird. It was just really interesting to follow kind of their passion. And ultimately, when I was leaving Bird, Travis was like, "Hey, if you want to do," I was thinking about doing a startup. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was like, "Hey, I really want to do something, especially in fintech." And he was like, "Hey, if you want to do something like what became the Doge-Card," it was like a different iteration then. He's like, "I'd love to invest." And I was like, "Okay, this guy's coming with like, he's a fabulous entrepreneur and operator, and he's coming with this great idea, and he's coming with to finance it as well." And I was like, "This is too good to pass up." So, he was like, "Hey, take this financing, start to run with this idea that he'd been kicking around for a while," and ultimately it became what Dogecard is today. That was the idea, and that was really what kind of pushed me over into the community and really starting to like follow everybody and learn more about the community and started to engage and become friends with folks from the community. But that was the original story, and I know Antonio Gracias and Elon would joke around a lot about Doge, and that's what got him into it, and then it kind of spread from there, and that's ultimately what brought me into the community.
Interesting, because when I was working in the processing space for 3 years, a lot of my peers would mention Dogecoin. Some of the more successful reps, right? They would mention it, kind of joke and say, "Hey, you should check this out." And I'm like, I still don't even get it, right? And I'm still trying to cover my 401k and my Roth and things like that, right? So I didn't really think about it, and I'm kicking myself, but it wasn't until Doge really went to like Robinhood and it was easily accessible before I was able to get in. And obviously when we were all sitting at home looking for some returns during the pandemic, seeing Doge on my Robinhood as an option, I took it. But I really wish I took it when my peers were talking about it in 2016, 2017.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's been great to hear folks' stories about how they heard about Doge and how they got into it. And it's just, you just learn so much about, people and how they think when they share their stories. So I love when I get to hear how people, first got into Doge and when they first bought, and, what prompted them to as well. It's fun and inspiring in so many ways.
Do you think you could have got hooked into another crypto? I mean, it just happened. It kind of sounds serendipitous, right? That you ended up with being into Dogecoin based on what the talking points were and who you're hanging out with. What if they were into, say, Sheeb? Would you have found yourself maybe still navigating to Dogecoin? Like, what was the draw to this specific crypto versus others?
No, it's a great question, and I think one of the kind of the thesis behind our whole company, the parent company of Dogecard is, we want to build financial products for communities. And I think if you zoom out, and this is kind of how I talk to some of our investors about it, which is, in all these aspects of your life, you get to choose products and services that align to your interests and values. Between your car and what food you eat and kind of the clothes you wear and the shops you go to, you can have these choices that reflect your interests and values. And it's pretty much like pervasive in almost every aspect of your life, except for finance and banking, right? And with finance and banking, you get these four choices. You get, Wells Fargo, you get Chase, you get, Bank of America or whatever. And it's just the same exact thing for everybody. And I don't know if it aligns to anybody's interests or values. And, when we saw something like that, we were like, hey, that's not right. Why is it that in every other aspect of your life, you can have a product that aligns to your interests, except for banking? And I think that was like one of the original reasons why we thought the company was interesting, is because I don't think it should be like that. I think that you should have banking, card options, financial products that align to your interests and values. And when you think about Doge, you think about the community, the long-term community behind it that sticks together regardless of price and FUD and all the other stuff that happens. And it's a true community that is based around a common interest, which is Doge. And those two things just lined up perfectly for, my company, the company's vision of what it wants to do. And then also with the community and how the community is structured and like how the community feels about what binds them together. So those are kind of the reasons why Doge makes a ton of sense. And I think even if we would have started with a different card, like let's say we built for a different crypto community first, I think this one would be an obvious choice for us to have fast followed into, just because of the nature of the connection between each other and the community itself.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it's kind of a credit union model, right? Credit union models, they don't have stockholders. They're always trying to find different avenues to give back to the people that use their products, whether it's cheaper rates or kickbacks. So it's kind of a credit union vibe or feel that you have there, and you're trying to find ways to not only boost the ecosystem with Doge and giving back, but speaking of giving back, I mean, you guys have given your 1 millionth Doge away as of yesterday?
Yeah, so we just announced that we have given back to the community 1 million Dogecoin, which is like a nice milestone for us. I see it, hopefully the next one will be, 10x from there. But it's, it was just something that we're really proud of sharing. We love to give back to the community. This is something that is just critical for us. And, hitting this milestone, we wanted to share with the community because the community, is the group of folks that earned it. So we're having this little contest, and, we're giving away some T-shirts, and, we're giving away 1,000 Doge to 3 folks as well, and a bunch of other stuff. So, it's exciting. It's been an exciting last kind of 6-7 months since we've launched, and we're excited to add a couple zeros to the number of Doge that we've given back to the community. So it's an early milestone, but we're thrilled to be announcing that.
What's that? $80,000 of profit you've given back? Is that what that comes out to?
Well, we have to calculate. I was actually asked the other day what was the average cost of each Dogecoin, so we're calculating it now. But it was,
I was just
when we started, it was,
size.
the price fluctuates so much. So we actually are going to calculate it and share it out this later this week. We're going to share what our dollar cost average was. So it's going to be fun to share some of those like little facts.
Nice. So you're kind
That's
of
cool.
building a model where people can choose a bank without choosing the bank because you're not a bank, right? At least that's what
Okay,
your
so
website says.
yes, correct. So we're a tech startup. So starting as a tech company and then becoming a bank is a pretty arduous process, especially here in the U.S. So the good thing for us is there's this new kind of category of financial products that can connect to actual banks. So our sponsor bank is Evolve Bank and Trust, been around for 95 years. They're incredible partners. They're an incredible bank to be partnered with in terms of just like, strong balance sheet, great compliance, great relationships. They're just really good partners. And they power all of our, the FDIC insurance, the deposit account, all of the fiat money movement. And that's really enabled us to build this product relatively quickly and get it out into the hands of the community. And it's also allowed us, this model has also allowed us to connect cryptocurrency functionality to it, like the Dogecoin rewards, buy and sell, transfer deposit, all these additional pieces of functionality that kind of we've come together in the Dogecard app. It wouldn't be possible if we were an actual licensed bank. So this new model that's kind of only come online in the last few years has really enabled us to build this product. So, we felt like the timing was right, and we're grateful for all that.
So, obviously you're moving into a community that is somewhat historically anti-bank, anti-financial institutions, very much control your own funds. How do you
Yes.
position yourself in a way that the community can understand exactly where you're coming from? Because at first glance, I would hear, okay, we're not a bank, but we're like a bank, and it's a little different, and we might actually become, I mean, it almost sounds like we might become like a bank, or we might become a bank officially. And that might raise some concerns. What's your take on that?
No, I think they're real concerns. And I think it's something that as we first launched and as we were first talking to folks from the community about the product, it was one of the first things that came up. It's like, hey, we love Doge because it's decentralized. Okay, what is your product is by default because it's related to fiat functionality, or it has fiat functionality embedded within it. It's centralized, right? And then it's like, hey, some of the core tenets that we care about as a community, which I believe in as well, particularly decentralization, particularly this like kind of global focus around kind of low cost payments and payments infrastructure. These are like core tenets of the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about a product like Dogecard, the infrastructure around it, if you strip out some of the pieces of it, it's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to achieve with this decentralization. And I think when we first started talking, when I was talking about this with Travis, we were like, hey, should we even launch this thing? Should we even build this because of this dynamic of the community and the focus on decentralization and then the product being realized? And as we were kind of thinking that through, I think a couple of things really stuck out to us, which was one was, okay, well, even if we do the most staunch believers in decentralization, because of all of the services that we use, because of our rent, because of like how we pay for things in the real world today, there was almost everybody, if not everybody, is still using fiat for those things, right? And with each purchase, we can give back, Dogecoin and make it easy to access Dogecoin for new people and make it low risk and kind of buy, hopefully tens and 20, hundreds of millions of of Dogecoin for folks through rewards, I think that actually does add material benefit to the ecosystem, even in spite of the centralized nature of the product. So I think those are the kind of the initial thinking behind kind of the topic. And then as we launched, what we thought actually came true with was feedback from the community. Why do I want this? Why is Visa involved? Who's Evolve Bank and Trust? Why is this why is there a bank account associated with this? And I think all that feedback was very expected and very real. But at the end of the day, we felt that we could build a great product for the community. We know it's not for everybody, but we hope people, will try it and get value out of it. And if we can add value, then it'll stick. And, one of the things I learned from the Dogecoin Foundation as I've been following them and listening to their points of view on third-party developers coming into the ecosystem, their view is like, hey, if the community adopts it, then if the community likes it and the community adopts it, then it's good for Doge, then it's right for Doge. And if the community rejects it and the community doesn't want it, then then the next logical steps for that are going to be it to go away. So that gave me confidence that if I could build that, that gave me confidence that if we could build something great and that people liked, that it would stick.
Yeah.
And
That's
so far, feeling grateful. Go ahead.
Interesting, because I was one of the first people to really dial in. It's like, hey, I know how your business models work, and I know how the rewards systems work, and it's kicking over to people. But hey, that we're a bank, not a bank thing was like, okay, I'm going to be a little hesitant, right? I'm not going to come at you. I want to dig, I want to understand, and I want to do research before I dive into a product. And when I start realizing, like you had just laid out, like, hey, we're using revenue that we're taking in on your normal card purchases, and we're giving them back to the community, right? That centralization, decentralization, the ecosystem was really where my head was at in our conversation on that thread. And so I don't know if you want to really dive into like the actual card type and the interchange and that looks like for the business and how you're able to kick back that in rewards. Because the more I looked into it, the more I started realizing, I was telling Jimmy, I said, hey, this is kind of a really good opportunity, because what we do is a meme of the week, which you're going to see here at the end, and we give out 420 Doge. And just to get to where we're at now and giving out that 420 Doge, that's obviously a bleeding wallet. Now I can use this card for my daily transactions, pay my rent, and keep Doge coming in, funnel out to the community. So speaking of ecosystem, your money that you're giving to the community through the card swipe is now coming to us, and now we're able to distribute it out to devs for their work, for people who are memeing contests and things like that. So it actually has provided a utility for us. Will provide a utility to us when I pay my rent with it for the first time this month. So,
that's awesome. I love to hear that. And some of our early kind of supporters and people I would call my friends, like Own a Bot, for example. She was like, hey, I earn on my purchases, and then I tip the community with what my earnings from the Dogecoin, so I don't have to keep, so I don't dip into my, my savings or whatever to buy for tips. And these are just great use cases, and what you just said, the things that I would have never been able to dream up when we were thinking about, or Travis would never have been able to dream up when we were thinking about the card. And that's what I think is just beautiful. This community is just the creativity around it and kind of the openness, even, looking past the centralization piece and getting past some of the more challenging kind of conceptual concepts around it, and then moving to like, hey, this could actually add value, and thinking creatively and being open-minded about that. So I think that that's just a hat tip to you and the community for being creative. And just getting back to the question about how it works. So, a more detailed view of the underpinnings of how the card works is, it's a debit card issued by Visa and Evolve, our bank partner. And it just works as any other debit card. You can pay for, anything that is any merchant that accepts Visa. Folks now are actually paying their rent and paying off credit cards, which I would love to talk about at some point in the podcast, because it's such a great use case that we're seeing folks get tons of value out of just paying off their credit card. So anything that you've used a debit card in the past for, you can use the Dogecoin for and earn rewards, and I think some of the better use cases are around, replacing kind of your old Wells Fargo or Bank of America debit card spend, which doesn't earn anything, to using your Dogecoin. Now you're earning rewards on all those purchases or all those payments. And I think that's just like pure incremental value to you. And the cost is just the time it takes to kind of get things set up, which, we're trying to make as minimal as possible. So on every swipe, the merchant pays Visa a percentage of the total transaction value. And this is actually very interesting because it's one of the core value props behind the Accept Doge movement that we ultimately believe in, where, we want to like use Doge as the payment methods across these different transactions to reduce the fees associated with money movement, right? But today, so, the merchant pays Visa a percent, usually between 2 and 3%. And then Visa would then share that revenue with the bank and the card operator, in this case, us. So with every purchase, we as Dogecard earn some revenue on that. And then we basically take 100% of that and give it back to the community. And in some cases, just a little bit more.
I was going to say, so just for the type of cards, right? For somebody that knows and does a lot of digging, right? There's different types of debits, just like there's different types of credit cards out there, all carry different interchange rates. So is this more of a retail debit where it's carrying a higher percentage? Because that's where I was trying to understand the math on how is he giving out that many rewards? Are they just giving the full transaction piece, right? The 22 cents per transaction on debit and they're only making 0.05%? Or is this more of a retail debit card and you're grabbing 15 cents per transaction? And you see where I'm going with this? I was trying to do that math in my head and I'm like, which one is it? So I can understand.
We don't earn any flat fees on a per transaction basis. Maybe Visa or the bank might, but we just earn a percent. We just earn a flat percent of each transaction, and then we give 100% of that back to the community. And one of the one of the reasons why this company exists is to do that, right? And that's like one of the core values of the company. And we are a venture-backed startup, and we've designed the company to operate with a minimal amount of burn. So we have like a very small team, a small but mighty team that does all this work. And we keep our burn as low as possible so we can give as much rewards as possible back to the community. And that's ultimately our goal, right? And that's why I'm excited. I wasn't celebrating, hey, $1 million in profit to Dogecard, $1 million Dogecoin given back to the community, right? So these are the things that we care about and we optimize for, is the number of Doge we can give back to the community. Of course, within the constructs that we can't go out of business, right? If we go out of business, then, zero, then the community gets zero Doge, right? So we're trying to strike that balance, but with the goal of giving as much back as we possibly can. And that's why we celebrate these types of milestones, because, these are the things that we care about.
So did you see Rachel's question? The other, I think it was this morning, talking about the black card. And that black card, actually, there was a thread between you and me, and I was talking about the black card and the conversion to fiat, how that's money leaving the ecosystem. And then I didn't know that is that on pause? Is that something that's being revamped and coming back?
Yeah. Yes. So just a quick story on that, how we came to it. So one of the first things that I heard when I started, talking and interviewing folks in the community is, hey, they want to spend Dogecoin. And then, but when you dig in, it's like, but they want to spend it, but they want the merchant to accept it directly. And these are the steps to, mass adoption. These are the steps to, Doge as a primary payment method, for transactions. So, when we started to investigate this, and we were like, hey, well, right now, especially for folks who are native crypto, who are actually paid in crypto, and there's a pretty big and growing community, especially within Web3, in other areas of the crypto community, that they're actually paid, in crypto, not in fiat. And for those folks, like, paying bills, paying for dinner, it's a huge hassle, even though there are cards like BitPay out there that, you can sell it to fiat and then top up your card and still use it like that. But there's still a lot of friction associated with that use case. So I went to two of our partners, and I was talking about, hey, how could we enable people to just, transfer Doge into their wallet and then spend directly from the card without having to take any additional steps. And that was kind of where the idea for the Black Card was kind of born from. I mean, it was the idea of the community, obviously, but then as we started digging in with our technology partners, Zero Hash on the crypto side, and then Evolve and our other banking partner, Solid, they came up with this idea that we could, create a wallet that you could put Doge into that's connected directly to a debit card that when you swiped, it could pull from the wallet, without the user having to initiate any kinds of transaction. And so we built that and we launched it. It still converted Doge to fiat at the time of transaction. So that was the big drawback for the product. It's like, hey, this merchant didn't accept Doge, but the merchant accepts Visa. So, the first version was it would convert Doge to fiat at the time of transaction. But from a user perspective, it was like really seamless and easy to spend Doge. So even with those kind of drawbacks, we thought it would be an interesting product to test. And, we got it out there and it was working like pretty nicely. I think people were using it, especially folks who were native crypto getting paid in Doge. And then, our two technology partners decided to kind of stop working together. There was nothing crazy, no drama or anything like that. It was just a part of, this crazy fintech world we live in. So we had to temporarily pause the product because the interconnection of those two companies were required for us to actually make it work. So that was a few months ago. So that was December. So unfortunately, at that time, we had to pause the Black Card. But we told everybody, hey, keep your card because we're bringing it back, which we are. And now Zero Hash, our partner, is building this great card spend product that's going to allow us to connect, to do basically the same exact thing that it was doing before. So when this product comes out, which they're working on now, it's a very complicated product, believe it or not. But when they launch it, we'll be able to bring the Black Card back, and your existing Black Cards that you have before will work in the same way that they did before. So long story, but that's the unfortunate news with it. But we are working to bring it back, and I think by the summer you'll be able to use your Black Card again.
Yeah, that's kind of a good segue into what I wanted to ask as well. Obviously, pulling Dogecoin from the ecosystem it's generally frowned upon, right? From converting to fiat upon point of sale, because you're kind of you're basically doing a sale order, right? And it's not like saying, hey, you got paper hands, that's bad, but there's Dogecoin that was floating through the ecosystem from hands to hands. And then once it enters your, say, Black Card and you're spending the Doge directly, that's going straight to fiat. And that's usually looked at as a bad thing. And what I'm wondering is what is your take in terms of long-term planning or master planning for how the Dogecoin is going to ultimately support or Dogecard is going to ultimately support the Dogecoin ecosystem, in that the Accept Doge movement is very much like take the actual Dogecoin itself. But if it almost seems like this is like a balance of necessary evils. I don't mean to use that term like as a strong negative or anything, but almost like a necessary evil. Like, hey, to get people to accept it, we still have to be able to spend via Visa for now. But is there a long-term plan so that that is a for now? Because I think most people would say that's not the long-term goal.
Absolutely. That was the feedback from day one from the community. From the first time that I got the feedback around this, the concept of converting to fiat was frowned upon and was like, hey, that may be a good intermediary step if it can be bridged to this longer term view that we have around merchants accepting directly and wallet transfers with no transaction fees or very minimal transaction fees, as like kind of the long-term vision or goal for the product. So I think the way that, I guess my experience around merchants, so it has really kind of populated and my point of view around this topic. And at Bird, many of you, even if you've know the scooters and the e-bikes and stuff, we actually had launched this product called Bird Pay, which would enable merchant, like when you sign up for Bird, you would get this like fiat wallet that you can preload with cash and then spend it on rides. And we were like, hey, what if you could spend your Bird wallet money at a merchant, at a local merchant? So we went and built this product where merchants can put a little thing and a QR code on it, and people could just scan it and pay for a coffee or pay for an ice cream with your Bird wallet. And it ultimately failed for a whole bunch of reasons, but I learned a ton about merchants during that process. So a couple of things that I learned about merchants. Merchants are strapped for cash, and merchants are like in this eternal battle to become profitable and to stay alive. I mean, some of like some of the best shops that you visit, the most popular merchants that you visit are still just like strapped for cash. They're worried, are they going to be able to continue operating? And when you think about a new payment method, in this case, it was Bird Pay that we were trying to introduce, or in our case, Dogecoin. The things that I've learned from them is, hey, there has to be a very specific reason for me to accept this new payment method. And there has to be a real tangible benefit to me in order for me to do this. So in the conversations that I had, the reason why some of these merchants were like, hey, I'll accept Bird Pay was because we had tens and hundreds of thousands of people in their city around them that had balances on their app that could we could promote their business, and they could come. We would promote their business in exchange for them accepting Bird Pay. So that was kind of the thing. That was kind of the exchange that we had, and that was kind of the selling point. And I think without that, they would have never done it. We would have gotten zero merchants to try this new program because there was no benefit to them. And there's just like a ton of work. They have to train their employees. How do I accept this? What happens if somebody comes in? What if there's a refund? Like all these kind of crazy cases, that's like their day-to-day world. They want to see that there's like a real benefit because there's such a real cost for introducing a new payment method. So this is a really, I guess, a long story of saying, as we approach thinking about how to get merchants to accept Doge, I think there has to be some critical value that we can offer them that's like, hey, accept Doge and you'll get more business, you'll get more exposure. I don't think the fees, the 3% reduction in fees is going to be as beneficial as folks might think, because as long as they're paying out their vendors and their employees in fiat, they're going to have to convert it to fiat anyways, right? Mm-hmm. So when I think at least about how to sell a merchant on accepting a new payment method, I have to go to this, what's the benefit for them? And the way we were thinking about the Black Card is hey, we can show these merchants that we have thousands of people in their area or hundreds of people in their area that are paying with Dogecoin already. And if you do accept Doge, we can actually say, this isn't some hypothetical, hey, if you implement this payment method, 100 people will come. Like we could
It's a
physically say,
demographic.
hey, we have people going into your store today. We have the day transaction data. Here's what it looks like. There's already, thousands of people in your area that are spending Dogecoin that are like potential customers of your business. And that was kind of one of the original thoughts behind, hey, maybe we could use the black card transactions as a proxy to show the evidence that if these merchants did accept Doge, that they could get more traffic or more business as a result of that. And that's something that we still believe is a good entry point and a good sales pitch to merchants. But it's tough. It's tough to get merchants to change. So I think that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but I do ultimately believe that when we can show these merchants that there is a tangible value to their business to accepting Doge, then you'll start to see this like groundswell of kind of movement towards accepting.
It's interesting because you basically they're gonna convert it, right? So we all know that, and you're trying to show them a demographic, right? Here's some tangible proof. Here's a number you can quantify. So like I talk to Jimmy about like risk windows all the time, and I keep talking about the same thing. Like
I'm just kidding.
this is the issue that merchants deal with, and not only that is they have to be able to weigh the tax consequence, right? And then converting it and dealing with that daily market risk, for 3%, it's very hard to quantify, right? So I started making a push towards like the micro payment transactions make a little bit more sense, right? Because the risk window to trade is 11 to 15%. Micro transactions tend to pay a lot higher fees for the processing, and even down to website payments, right? Because the bank, there's no card in hand, so there's added risk. So you're looking at a 5 to 6% window to be able to maneuver in. And if you're paying capital gains tax at X rate, it's hard to really quantify that without that data. That makes
exactly sense. No, I think these are all the right questions for us as a community to be pondering, right? And I think for us to like put ourselves into the shoes of the merchants and to like spend a day, dealing with all the stuff that they have to deal with and the anxiety of what the future is going to hold for their business and the loan that they took out to start the business, all that. I think the more that we can put ourselves in those shoes, the better, the easier and better it will be for us to craft solutions to these challenges, these very real challenges that they're facing. And I think once we can do that, then it'll be a lot easier for us to mobilize together to kind of bring some of those solutions to market into life.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better. I mean, putting yourself in the merchant's shoes and just thinking things through from a business perspective. Like, it's not as simple as, hey, just accept it or just start, marketing your merchandise for Doge. It's really not that simple. And to your earlier point, it's like you still got to pay your employees. You're still paying for the the distribution, the product, the raw materials. I mean, all of that stuff ends up ultimately it needs to find its way to fiat because someone along that supply chain line needs money that they can use in their industry. So it's just not as simple as, demanding to accept Doge. And so just putting on your business sense hat and saying, what would I do if I were owning it? And actually plotting that out, that helps, I think, position your brain for how can I on ramp? And if this is, black card is kind of the means to that end, then I'm all for it. My main concern is what are the long-term steps to get there? And you kind of outlined it now, right? Like having that pitch to the merchants on here's how this benefits you. And then obviously from a financial perspective, what Slick was touching on, those are all the things to be thinking about. And that I would encourage the community to work closely with Dogecoin so that you can be someone that we can support, right? Versus someone that people are afraid of or is a threat because of the nuances that we're covering now.
No,
Even
absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, does so me and Jimmy were kind of talking about this offline, is the black card, does that create volatility? And I think that's kind of the main reason that a lot of people want that money to stay in the ecosystem, because if it's money coming out, it's just adding to that volatility.
Yeah, I think what I would say is, like, if you look at the total volume of Doge transaction on a daily or hourly basis, the size that we're at now, even though we've grown substantially and like more and more sheaves are using it, it's going to be a very long time before we can like actually make a big dent into like price at any moment. Even though we do, we do buy a lot of a lot of Doge in terms of total number of transactions per day, but you know I think it's not enough to actually create any sort of price. It's not going to be big enough volume to create any sort of price action happening. Um, that's at
Can
least what
I?
I've seen. And then the other thing that I've seen is like, on a monthly basis, we offer, buy and sell, basically trading in the app. And, on some days when the price is up, you see people kind of come in and selling a little bit more. And then when the price kind of dips, you see a bunch of people coming in buying. And just over the course of the month, like, it's almost always kind of evens out. So it's just been really interesting to watch like buying and selling patterns. And even with the black card, but like the amount bought and sold was basically the same over the course of the month. So, um, at
It's
least,
interesting to hear that coming from a community that says hodl hodl.
no, I know. Well, you see it
I know, I'm
for
just kidding.
no, no, no. It's. I think HODL is one part of the community. I think that's like kind of long-term investor point of view. And then there are folks who there's like a big part of the community, and maybe these aren't the people who have the big followings, and these aren't the people who are kind of talking about this regularly, but they're transacting in Doge. These are people who are really transacting in Doge. They're getting paid in Doge, and they have bills that they have to like use that Doge to pay. And it's interesting when we talk to these folks, because they're not the ones that are kind of the most vocal in the community, but in terms of total transaction volume, these are the folks that are like kind of making up probably the lion's share of that. So it's interesting to see like all the different use cases and aspects of the community, that we've seen with Dogecoin that I've been lucky enough to get exposure to.
How do you
It even helps.
accumulate? How do you accumulate the Doge when you're giving out these rewards? What does that process look like?
Um, well, we use Zero. So Zero Hash they're our licensed kind of crypto partner. They're incredible, by the way. Like a lot of the best kind of crypto products in kind of this new world are powered by Zero Hash. So they're an incredible partner. They're licensed in almost every state besides New York, and I know they're working on that, which has been a pain point for our New York Doge fam. Um, so they have a bunch of partners that you know allow their products to transact with Doge. So we have market makers that we buy from, and then we every single transaction we buy the rewards straight from that pool. So, and then any kind of transfer in and out is like on chain. So we'll make like a big purchase, and then we'll kind of go through it in the pool, right? So I think that's kind of the high level view on how it works individually. We didn't want to make individual on-chain transactions for every rewards purchase, because that would just clog up the network. So this was kind of the approach that Zero Hash suggested, and the approach that we've taken.
Okay, so you kind of buy in bulk and distribute.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So speaking about the whole wallet concept, um, there's two very popular sayings in crypto and especially in the Dogecoin community, which takes very seriously, which are don't trust, verify. That's a big one. And the other one is not your keys, not your crypto. So
Yeah.
how do these, like, what do those mean to you? How do they apply to Dogecard? And how can someone kind of validate the institutional side of Dogecard when they
Yes.
adopt these mentalities?
No, I think that, I mean, anybody who doesn't take those precautions is just putting themselves at risk, right? And we've seen just over the last year, I mean, it's been insane. Everybody knows what's been happening, especially with FTX and whatnot, and the litany of other services, especially the lending services. Um, the lending services or the yield products have just kind of destroyed the trust in any of these institutions, any of these big kind of crypto exchanges, and with good reason. I mean, anytime where you're kind of putting leveraged bets, where you're lending people your money to put leveraged bets on like a risk on asset, it's going to be, it's tough. I think the actual like concern is very real, and the like results of what has happened over the past year speak for themselves. And I think every person should be concerned about this. So as far as Dogecard is concerned, everybody can see our wallet address that we hold our Doge in is public. Anytime you withdraw Doge from the Dogecard, you can kind of see that wallet address, and you can see all the transactions associated with it. So we have more Doge in our Doge account than we have, significantly more than we have in wallets on the app. And we do encourage folks to withdraw, their rewards into hard wallets or into My Doge. We recommend that on the website, etc. So I think I think what I would say is like, as if the company that you're working is that if the company is not engaged in lending, like for us example, there is no benefit to Dogecard for you to keep your Doge on Dogecard. There's no benefit. We have zero. It's all just like liability. So we have zero benefit for you to do that. And because of that, we don't ask people to deposit. We don't require, X amount of Doge to use the Dogecard like other cards do, because we just don't have a benefit, because we don't do lending and we don't engage in any sort of activities that where we as a company would benefit from people holding Doge. So on the card. So, I think that's like the biggest thing is like, what are the incentives of the company, and like, are the incentives aligned with your incentives? And for us, there is no incentive for you to keep your Doge on Dogecard. I personally would prefer you to move it off right into your hard wallet or into My Doge or into your self-custodial wallet, because we have no benefit. There's no benefit to us, we want to keep filling your wallet. We're not in the business of taking what's in your wallet and leveraging it for some sort of benefit. So I think that's the big thing for us.
Wallet?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
I said, what's in your wallet?
Yeah, exactly. The Dogecard's in my wallet. So yeah, there's no benefit for us. We don't do any lending there. So our whole goal is to fill your wallet up with more Doge, right? And we want every person who uses the Dogecard to be net positive at the end of the day. We want every person to be profitable. Like using Dogecard should be profitable for every single person. And we want to minimize the risk associated with that. So
are there any plans to issue non-custodial wallets with what funds you reward?
Yeah, so we have been talking to Zero Hash about that, and they do have it on their roadmap. So it is something that we aspire to for sure. But in the meantime, in between, considering that it's custodial wallet, we've just designed the whole kind of system around incentivizing people to move their kind of Doge into these hard wallets or into My Doge. So until we do have you know, until we do have wallets with your keys that you control, then I think we're going to continue to push people to move Doge into like safekeeping, you know.
That's good.
Not that I'm worried about anything, because I'm
Mhm.
not, because we do have more than one-to-one backing and we have an incredible partner. I just think that it's like in today's day and age, like, you know, it's two taps to send your rewards over to your My Doge wallet or, you know, your ledger. So just, you know, just take that step.
Yeah. That was that was going to be my my other question. So, in the meantime, and it sounds like this is kind of a short-term roadmap that you might be headed towards, which is great. I mean, obviously, the sooner the better, um, for allowing people to control their own wallet without having to constantly withdraw what you've got or keeping the balance like extremely low, which would discourage you from spending, right? If you've got a certain amount and you have a black card and you want to spend that on rent, you're gonna have to keep a pretty significant amount in there. Um, and so in that interim, are there risks with loading up your Doge onto your Dogecard account? And as an institution, I'll put it this way, and I was kind of phrasing it this way with Slick behind the scenes, but could you go FTX and go belly up and something happens? And what happens to everybody who's holding on your card?
Right. So if the question is if Dogecard or a parent company goes out of business, like what happens to customer funds?
Yeah.
So let's just take the most, if there is a scenario where we go out of business because we're not making leveraged bets, like we don't make leveraged bets, right? We earn, you know, exactly where we earn our money from. We just talked about it. The way we would go out of business is, if that did happen, would be, hey, we didn't grow fast enough. We didn't make enough prospective investors interested in investing in us, and we can't raise another round of financing. And in that case, we would have to shut the company down, right? So let's just like walk through that case. It's a terrible case. I don't believe it's going to happen. I think we're going to be fine. But
That's
let
not a
you know, in
question I
today's environment, you
enjoy
know,
asking.
no. It's unfortunately something I think about quite often, right? Because I'm a founder and CEO of this startup, so I have to accept the risk, that the fact that if we don't get future funding, we're going to go out of business, or we have to turn profitable. In that case, you know, reduce the rewards and share more evenly the profit from each transaction. So I don't want to do that either, right? So let's just say, you know, in the case that we did, and we weren't able to raise another round, so we would know there's about a 3-month window process where, with our banks, we're legally required from a disclosures perspective with 3 months in advance to notify every single member of the community, every single person who has an account, that the accounts are going to be closing, right? So there's a 3-month lead time where we have to notify every single member that, hey, this account is going to be closing in the next 3 months. Please, like, withdraw your fiat. Please withdraw your Dogecoin. Um, I think we're legally required to disclose the fiat component of it, but we would do both, obviously. So um, within that 3-month period, my hope is everybody would withdraw all of their funds, both fiat and Doge. Um, and in the event that they don't,
You mail them
on
a
the
20
fiat
cent
side,
check.
we mail them a check, and we actually have done that. We do that for folks that, you know, want their accounts canceled or whatever. We'll mail them a check, right, to their address on file. So we do that already in certain cases. So on the fiat side, that would happen. And then on the Doge side, the wallet, it would still be in the wallet, and you'd have to contact Zero Hash to withdraw it. But my assumption would be the 3-month kind of lead up time would be enough time to kind of withdraw. So, and we would make out, you know, our goal would be to make sure everybody gets their money out, you know, but so they didn't have to go through these secondary processes.
Yeah. And
Um,
non-custodial
I don't
wallets would
believe,
mitigate that for your side, right? That extra work, right? You're basically saying, "Hey, this is yours
correct.
anyway, so just keep it." And sorry things didn't work out.
Correct. That would be the big benefit, and that's the benefit that we see as well for non-custodial wallets. But yeah, anytime, it's a scary time for any crypto linked product or any crypto product or crypto linked product. But for us, we've kind of designed the system to minimize risk both for us and for all of our users. So, you see startups out there, and a lot of the investors were like, hey, why aren't you getting yield? Like, you're leaving money on the table. There's like, look at BlockFi, look at Donut, look at like all these products, these startups that were just like raking cash and raising at high valuations. And for us, it just didn't make sense. Both because of the mission, which we talked about the community component of, and then secondly, because of the risk associated with it. You can't have a sustainable company where anytime there's a downturn, you lose millions of your customers' funds. That's not a good business, So, and I'm not trying to criticize them because I'm sure that they weren't thinking that was going to happen in that exact way. But, you live and learn. So hopefully those folks have learned, and when they come back next time with a new product, it'll be different. And for us, we were different out of the gate, so it's not something that we ever really considered.
Okay. So I've only got a couple more questions. Slick, I'm sure you might have had your mind's probably whirling because this is so in alignment with your area of expertise. Huh?
Yeah, my background. Yeah, it's just mine goes all over the place, and it's like you came into the community, and there was a lot of people. You took a lot of heat, right? People trying to understand the thing, people just trying to fall in line, thinking they know something and want to pop off. I mean, it's just all over the place. But what was that experience like? Like, just like walk me through that gauntlet.
Yeah. Well, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that a lot of it was self-inflicted, right, with the approach, and something that I would coach anybody who is like thinking about launching a new product for this particular community should be like taking specific steps to mediate some of the challenges associated with it. So when we first came in, like I mentioned before, Travis wasn't a big part of the community, at least on Twitter, and neither was I. I wasn't really active on Twitter at all before I came into the community. Now I am, and all my feed is like all Doge people, which is amazing, by the way. So, and the initial kind of backlash, or the initial kind of pushback against the product, which is what we discussed earlier, which is like, all of us believe in this decentralized approach, and then the Dogecard itself is by default centralized. So there was kind of headwinds already coming into the community just because of that alone. And then in addition, all of the bad actors that have done things within the community and within the broader crypto community, and have had actually caused real damage. I think the combination of those things have led the community to be really skeptical, especially folks who take it on themselves to make sure that the community is protected. They were kind of very skeptical of the product when we first released it. And then the second mistake we made was, the way that it was introduced was kind of haphazard, and some of the people we were working with weren't exactly loved by the community, even though I personally think they're good people, even though they've made mistakes. So, and I feel like in my career in life, I've had a decent judgment of who's a good person and who's a bad person. But with all that said, you come in and you introduce a product that isn't necessarily aligned with the decentralization approach, is being promoted by people who may not be the most beloved for various reasons that are real, by the way, but from my perspective, should be forgiven. It created a tough environment to come out into. And I think folks were naturally like questioning the things, the motives behind it, who I am, what's a company, why are you doing this? Is it a scam? There's banking involved. There's money movement involved. So I think for all those reasons, there was a lot of skepticism towards the product, and a lot of the folks who were protecting the community were very vocal about that. And my view was like, hey, I really am trying to do something to benefit the community. I have good intentions. We've raised good money. Our investors are great people with great intentions for the community. And we want to build this great product. So I need to make sure that I can answer all these questions, regardless of if it's, people hate me or it's a personal attack or whatever. And I need to have thick skin enough to like answer these questions, to take the time, talk to people one on one, answer them publicly. The things that I can't answer, I need to go do my research. I need to talk to my partners and come back with answers. I need to put it in the FAQ. I need to do all these steps to like earn the trust of the community. And that was a process, that was a very humbling process for me. And it wasn't something that I was used to in my background, but it was something that was really important to like earn the trust of the community. And then once we got over kind of those initial steps, then it was about, how do you deliver the highest quality of service? How do you deliver a great product experience for the community? And then that should determine the success or failure in the adoption, as kind of Tim from the foundation says. So that was kind of my thinking. I don't know what was your experience or view watching it.
I will
Yeah,
say
like
real
watching it.
quickly, I really hope that there are a lot of listeners that absorb what you just said, because I think that's a very good takeaway.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's
I'd say too, from like watching it, and IA being a part of it too, but there's a lot of people who've come in to the community with products, different things, and they haven't handled themselves the best in that moment, or taken that feedback that, let's say, the best. The way you handled yourself through all those questions, it was like, yeah, you know what, I'm not quite there yet. I'll get that information, or we're working on it. And you were very, very to the point with me as well. And then not only that, but then when Queen wanted to jump on and get the card and try it out, you were really helpful with her. I mean, you just grabbed it and went hands on and helped her out. And then that intrigued me. And now here I am with the card. And it's just how you carried yourself through all of that is what really stood out to me, because I've seen a lot of people crash and burn having to go through that. So that was cool to see, and a big part of why you're here.
no, I very much appreciate that, and I know we're just all getting to know each other, but these are the types of things that why I a lot of when you think about what do you do, why do you do what you do in your life and your career, for me, I care about building great products that people love and use and get value out of. And that's what drives me, and that's what makes me happy. And I think the hard parts about launching a product like this pale in comparison to how happy I get when I see people happy about their rewards, or like they can't believe the card has the Doge dog on it, or these just things that make me smile and make me so happy to hear the stories and to see the community happy. It pales into comparison to like kind of the pain associated with some of these learning experiences launching the product. So
One of the things, if you don't mind, I'm gonna touch on probably a little bit more. I don't know. I don't want to call it like a sensitive subject, but you talk about kind of the those initial experience, and a lot of what people kind of put those walls up for their protection, I suppose, or protectiveness, and their guard is up for their experiences with certain personas and certain people, and obviously events where people have just straight up lost a lot of money. And it almost sounds like you were alluding to some specifics that I'm not fully aware of, because I'll be honest, I have not done like a whole lot of I haven't engaged with you a lot in the past, just to be completely transparent. But one thing that I do know is, on your website and who you affiliate with is someone, Slum Doge Millionaire, and he's kind of we'll call it infamous in some degrees. I know we have a very pocketed communities and factioned in some senses, but one of the things that the community, I think, broadly is protective about is the world of scams, right? It's very easy to issue a token that is promising in tokenomics and pretty little white papers, and then people run off with your money. And he's one of the people who has a loud voice, who has promoted a few who people just were probably hurt by, right? And I think people have that like bad taste of affiliation. So I'm totally willing to divide the person from the business and the person from the persons, but how do you reconcile that? Obviously you are affiliated with him as an individual, as a promoter, and maybe it's just that, hey, it's business. We're here promoting, and we took a prominent figure. But I think a lot of the dissent that you might hear from the community might come from notions like that, because we've seen people vulnerable come into the community wanting to spend some money to make some money, and then they get hurt, they get burned.
Yeah, I think that that's a really fair. I mean, the concern around that is very real, and people getting hurt, it's terrible. You never want to see that, regardless of what kind of person you are. You just don't want to see that. You never want to see people get taken advantage of, and that's kind of why we designed the Doge card in a way that, like, using it, you're gonna be in the green. You're gonna make money each time. You're gonna earn Doge with every purchase, and you're not losing it. So I think that that's hopefully core to the product, and that shows kind of our point of view around it, just with regard to how it works. I think with Pro, the Slum Doge, the story around that, I would love to share in the context and my experience with him. So, when we were first getting ready to try to launch the product, we were obviously thinking about how do we get the word out about it and how do we promote it within the community. And I had reached out to a bunch of people, and I'll share with you some of the DMs, but out of the kind of 30 people I reached out to about the product, he was actually one of the only ones to reply, and he was the only one that would actually take a call with me. And it was really interesting because, and I've shown a lot of these to a few folks from the community, including Salty, and because he was like same question. This guy, who actually I've gotten to know him a bit, and he's got a good heart, in my personal opinion. So, so he replied. Everybody else kind of gave me the cold shoulder, and that's what it's like to be starting something new. It's like I understand that, like, I'm going to get the cold shoulder from 99% of the people out there, right? I understand that nobody's going to reply, and I'm going to be treated like a piece of garbage, and I understand that's part of the job. But when he replied and he said, "Hey, I think that's interesting. I want to learn more," that kind of really kicked off like the relationship that I have developed with him and that we've developed with him. And it's been one of like genuine, what I would say is it's been one of like genuine curiosity around what could be for the future in the community. My experience with him personally has been he's always wanted to put the community first, in everything that we've done together, including like the product decisions, the card, everything that we've done. He's like wanted to put the community first, adoption, widespread adoption, getting more people into Doge, etc. So my experience with him has been kind of very positive from that perspective. And I've never heard him, and I would be honest about this, you guys know that, I've never heard him say anything about taking advantage of the community or anything negative about the community. So my experiences with him have been good and have been aligned with the values that I have and that I care about. And then that's kind of just juxtaposed against like some of the Floki stuff and some of the other things that have happened. And when I asked him about it, it never seemed to me that it was intentional trying to hurt anybody. And if you understood like his background and where he came from, I think it makes more sense. And I guess I don't want to ramble on too much about it, but my view personally is that he's actually not a bad actor, and there are circumstances that have not been great. And I think, I don't know what he's done to rectify those, but my personal view is he's not a bad actor. And if I thought he was, then I wouldn't have worked with him, and I wouldn't continue to work with him. So I know that's not going to be very satisfying for a lot of people, but that's my experience, and I've known him now for over a year, and I feel like that's a pretty good amount of time to see somebody's true colors.
No, that's good. I mean, I think what I would be looking for, and I can't speak like on behalf of the community or anyone, is that, hey, we have kind of a commitment to certain Dogecoin principles, and maybe this might be of value to, maybe broadcast in some way, shape, or form, whether it's like a mission statement or like whatever on your website. But these are the values that we stand by. And when entities are not representative of those, that's not representative of us, and therefore, these are the ones who we're not affiliating with. And I'm not saying like, hey, disenfranchise him or his whole, his sub communities or anything over, the instances of, say, Floki, for example. But I think having those principled standpoints is valuable for a community that already has guards up. You know what I mean?
I understand, and there have been people who have come out straight out and told me that they're going to be against me as long as I continue to work with him. And folks that have said it in a much meaner way than that too, and
we have to remember that, people in the community who have been burned, they've been burned badly, right? And I'm not meaning to like harp on any individual or any person, right? This is not even specific to Pro the Doge. This is a widespread issue across the community, is that there's this YOLO mentality and HODL mentality that we talked about, and people really want to make money, and they make some dangerous bets, and it's off of what they've been quote unquote influenced by, and
Right.
they're susceptible to that kind of harm. And yes, DYOR, you are responsible for your own finances, but at the same time, leaders are somewhat responsible to try and nudge people in the right directions. And it's everything that you said on this podcast. I am excited to hear. We don't want to hold your Dogecoin. We want you to hold it in your own cold wallet. Those kinds of things are important. And the way people have been burned is just astronomical. I mean, life ruining decisions. And again, onus is a lot on them as well. But that's kind of where I come from, a little protective, I guess, of the broader community and thinking of it from that perspective. So it's not a harp on any one individual. It's just very much on the mentality and the two-way street aspect of it.
I think there's two sides to it, right? You can call it protective, right? But there's also like two different types of people in the social media realm, right? There's the people that actually care and don't want their followers. They're not going to retweet. They're not going to engage because they don't want their followers to be susceptible to that. Then there's the other side of the coin where you have people that want to attach to something because they want to be a part of something, or maybe they want to get something out of it. And it's twofold, right? So there's two different people. Like they're protecting their followers, right? Because they feel like that's a personal responsibility that they have. This is the latter, right?
Yeah. It's tragic. It's a very sad and tragic situation that happened. That's like happened across into with this specific community, other crypto communities, and then just across the board, just period, for other things as well. So, for me, I'm just saddened by it. And, if it does come to light that it was intentional, that was intentional harm on people in the community, I think that would be something that I would like to know, and I think, but it's just sad. And I just hope that in the future, less of this happens, and like it can be more positive and thoughtful in the approach. And that's the feedback I would give.
I do remember when he first came on to the scene in the YouTube world, he kind of got put under the wing of Matt Wallace, and God knows what you're going to learn or be susceptible to. And, that's a world that people like Matt and thought that was going to last forever, right? I'm going to be able to make money and be an influencer, do this and do that. And I think that over the last year and a half, with all these exchanges failing and everything else that's gone on, it's like there's this awakening right now. People are kind of trying to put together the pieces and how do we move forward as a community? What does a product rollout look like? What gets in, what gets out? Like, people are even more protective, I guess, now.
Totally. I think the next couple years, like heading up until the next like bull run, it's going to look a lot different, and both from like a regulatory perspective, and then both from like how people approach investing, especially in new assets or tokens, I think is going to be much different. But I will say on the other side of like folks that have lost so much, which is like tragic, of course, you also see people who gain so much when they bet right,
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen like the type of wealth creation or that you saw from during this last bull run, and I know a lot of people lost a lot, and some people gained and lost, and some people just gained, or some people just lost, and it's to varying degrees, right? But the risk when you go into something like that, when you make an investment like that, I think there's a small chance it's going to explode, and you're going to it's going to be life changing, and then there's a chance it's going to go to zero, and it's going to really be super painful and potentially life changing too. And I think if you don't know the risks associated with this, then I think that's like a separate conversation around like just understanding the risks of like investing in this way. Or even just look at the stock market, invest in like the NASDAQ last year, and like, look, you're down 50, right? So it's just a very sad thing. And I do hope that as time goes on, there's going to be less risk associated with these, but then there's also going to be less reward, right? And that's going to probably be a safer place for everybody and a much healthier environment for everybody.
Good. Yeah, that's like the NFA that people need to hear,
I mean, there's a lot of investors that really have a hard time understanding, like when you talk about buzzwords like entry points and exit strategies and things like that. Those are things that a lot of people haven't really wrapped their mind around, and maybe don't have the best average, let's say. But money's tight right now. Most people don't have a lot of money to pump into the exchange and buy various coins right now. So being able to utilize the Dogecoin to put a dent in your average certainly helps as a somewhat of a utility if you're trying to accumulate Doge at the same time. So I think, you know what I mean? It's good. Go ahead.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, when I started accumulating, it was at a significantly higher price point, like, 3-4x what it is today.
Right.
So as I'm accumulating now, when I make purchases, I'm stoked because of the amount that I get on each, reward is like so much higher in terms of like the total volume of Doge. So I personally think it's a great I know, like, it's interesting. You see when the price increases, you see more people coming in and signing up, and like, it's back, all that. But the real good time to use it is when it's dipped, when it's like when we're at the lowest point. That's the best time to use it. And it's just so counterintuitive, right? It's like just the mind f of investing, right? It's such an emotional challenge to get it right, and that's why it's so hard. And I wouldn't purport myself to be a great investor either. I build products because I can't invest, or whatever it is.
It's awesome. It's good insight. How are we doing on time, Slick? Do you have a lot more questions? And we have the meme of the week that we want to present a winner to.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys down?
We touched on a lot.
We did.
Yeah, I'm down for.
Hey, and
well,
one of the things we like to do is invite our guests back, even though we haven't had any guests come back yet, just because we're cycling through so many different people. But we'd love to have you back too, because things are going to change between now and the next time we get you on.
Yeah, I love that. It's been incredible to chat with you guys, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, this is really, really cool being able to just dive in and not get lost in the sauce of a Twitter thread. And
yeah,
you really want to learn about the card, there's a spot for it. And
here it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Appreciate it, guys.
Let's cut over to the meme of the week. And what we're going to do is we're going to present you three. We're not going to show you who they're from. And you're going to pick it, the winner. And the winner's going to get 420 big ones. So
nice.
Let's cut over to it. Meme of the week. All right. So our puppets are.
Oh, that's good. That is good. Well, maybe I'm dating my age. I'm a big Family Guy fan. So this is good for me.
Well, it speaks to Dogecard, right? It's like, do you need to buy the dip, or why don't you just go buy food and
I know that's right on
some
subject.
Dogecard, right? Yeah. So that's bonus points for sure.
Yep, bonus points. Okay, let's go for the second one. Work so hard that people think not the aliens did it, but you're an alien.
Oh yeah, that one's good too. That one is good. We got Elon there.
Yep.
Okay.
Elon gets
that one's more like that's an inspiration. This is an inspirational meme.
Yes. Yes.
So, when times are tough at work, you can look at this one, print it up.
Yeah, hang it up in your Just Hang On, next to your Just Hang On kitty.
Yeah, exactly.
I might do that. All right, here's the third one.
Okay, this one is classic. Okay, choose a pillow. Okay. I choose this. Nice. I believe in naps. Okay. All right, this one's a more risque version. Okay, this one we're not going to show the kids.
I'm not showing my kids this part. This is where I clip it.
This is for adult Twitter. Okay, cool. Yeah, right, three very, very strong submissions.
Yes.
We got Family Guy, we got the Elon inspirational quote, and then we got the risque Doge.
The name for this Doge is Big Booty Cheems.
That one's really good. I mean, they're all really good. I wish I could pick all of them. But I think this Family Guy one, super creative and super timely. And it just dates my age. So I got to go with the Family Guy meme here.
That old man Doge?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's old man Doge's meme.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, congrats. Mazel tov. And you deserve all the 420 Doge you're about to get for that great piece of artwork.
He's always memeing. Yeah.
Very cool.
Well done.
It's a good time.
Yep. Well, congratulations to our winner of the meme of the week. You're going to get 420 big ones. So keep your eye out for that. And yeah, why don't we wrap it up? Ryan, again, such a pleasure having you. Any closing thoughts for the audience that you feel like they ought to hear as a broader community?
No, appreciate it. Would love everybody to check out Dogecard if they get a chance to. Dogecard.co, or you could search it on the App Store or Play Store. So very much appreciate and love this community, and please share any feedback with me that you have so we can continue to get better. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Appreciate you having you on, Ryan. It's been a pleasure. Like Jimmy said, we look forward to having you on here in the future and keeping the community updated. So we appreciate all your hard work.
Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Talk soon, guys.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, audience, for listening. And until next time, we'll catch you. Bye.
Later.